Welcome to the Gita in Action podcast. My name is Radha, and I'm here with our family of seekers. We're reading through the Gita. We're studying its meaning and its relevance to our lives because this book is ancient. This is an ancient book, and when was this spoken? 5,000 years ago, right? And we're finding it still super relevant to our lives. Like it's a living text, which is incredible. It can really transform your lives, your heart, all the things. So grateful to be here with you all today and continuing this journey together in this sacred sangha. This sangha is so special and so important in our spiritual lives, right? To have a community of like-minded souls to get together and to do this together, to do this studying, to do this life, right? We need each other. We need to lift each other up. When somebody's down, somebody's there to lift him up. Then when that person's down, then somebody's there to lift him up, right? And we just keep going forward together. So thank you all for always lifting me up and being here and sharing your hearts vulnerably, right? And being bold and brave enough to do that work, right? It takes a lot, this internal practice. So today we are in the eighth chapter. We're in the eighth chapter, and we're starting with text 4. This chapter is called Attaining the Supreme. So it's text 4, chapter 8 is where we're starting. And before we start, Shakti, can you say the prayers for us?
I'd be honored. I'm gonna go a little slower today. Is that okay?
Yes.
Om Jnana Timirandasya Yananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Mano Bhishtam Shtapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kara Mayam Dandati Sva Pandatikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Cha Shri Rupam Sagarajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sadvahutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Paran Saka Gana Lalita Shri Visakan Vitams Cha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabando Jagapate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kancha Garungi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Prananami Hari Priye Vanchakapa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Bhavembhyo Vaishnavyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasar Guru Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Really nice. Thank you, Shakti. Sometimes you can just like close your eyes and get lost in the prayers, right? It's just like bathing your consciousness, these prayers. Thank you. Okay, so let's start with text 4, chapter 8, text 4. And whenever you're ready, Stella, if you can read it for us.
Okay. O best of the embodied beings, the physical nature, which is constantly changing, is called adhibhūta, the material manifestation. The universal form of the Lord, which includes all the demigods, like those of the sun and moon, is called adhidaiva. And I, the Supreme Lord, represented as the Supersoul in the heart of every embodied being, am called adhiyajña, the Lord of sacrifice.
Nice, thank you. So if we remember in chapter 8 starts with the first two texts are questions. And Arjuna is asking Krishna, Arjuna is asking Krishna, Arjuna is asking Krishna to kind of dive deeper into some of these terms that have been introduced in this before the 8th chapter. And so there was like 6 or 7 terms that he asked him to explain more. And then the last question that he asked him was about death, right? And that was the second verse, right? How can those engaged in devotional service know you at the time of death? Okay, so text 4, Krishna is still explaining those terms. And then in the next verse, text 5, he'll start the death question. And that kind of theme will carry on through the rest of chapter 8. So we'll start getting into that today. But before we do that, we'll learn a little bit more about these terms. And Krishna's giving us kind of a spiritual framework with these 3 key pieces. So the 3 terms that he talked about, first it was adhibhūta. Okay, that's the field of matter. So this is referring to material elements, right? Everything physical that makes up the universe, right? Earth, water, fire, air, ether, even our own bodies. Right? And the thing about matter is that it constantly changes, right? It decays, it dissolves over time. Right? And Krishna explains that all matter belongs to him. Right? So it's his separated material energy. Right? And when we choose to identify too closely with this temporary realm, right, with our body or with our things, our possessions, this is what keeps us bound to the cycle of birth and death. And how does this keep us bound to the cycle of birth and death is what we're really going to get into in this chapter, right? But that's kind of, we're kind of like setting up the foundation, right? That this is matter and this is Krishna's energy, right? But it's temporary. And there's a danger if we get too closely identified with it. So it's important to understand it in its rightful position, right? So that we can begin to see that the material world is not all that there is, right? It's just like the outer layer of Krishna's vast creation. Sometimes it's all we see, but it's just that outer layer of Krishna's vast creation. And the important thing is that it's all Krishna's vast creation. And this can be like pretty transformational when we start to realize that like even our body, is Krishna's energy, right? It's not mine. Even our body and everything around us is Krishna's energy. It's not mine. And this is what we should start to realize about this field of matter. And we want to start to change our relationship with ourselves and everyone and everything around us, understanding that it's Krishna's energy. Okay, so then the second one is adhidaiva. Okay, that's the divine intelligence behind matter. Right? So this refers to like the divine governing principle, the intelligence that controls and coordinates the functions of nature. So Krishna explains that this is represented by his universal form. And this we're going to talk about much more later in the Gita. There's like a whole chapter dedicated to it. But this is the form in which the entire cosmos can be seen as his body. Right? So we imagine the universe as a living being. The sun and the moon are his eyes. Right? The mountains, its bones. The rivers, its veins. Right? The stars, the hair on its body. Right? This vision, it shows that nature isn't random. Right? That it's alive with divine purpose. Right? And it's directed by higher beings. And those are the demigods that we've talked about. Right? And they work under Krishna's supervision. And so this is creating the foundation in the spiritual context. Okay, this is matter. Matter's temporary. It's going to decay. It's going to go away. And it's all Krishna's energy. right? And then this is the divine, this is the governing principle behind it all. And these are the demigods, the universal form. Right? And Prabhupada explains that while the universal form helps us see God's presence in everything, it's not Krishna's ultimate reality. Right? It's just like a stepping stone. It helps us move from seeing just nature to seeing Krishna's energy. And then ideally we see Krishna himself. Right? Because his true form, it's eternal, it's personal, it's full of love. Right? But the universal form is like a stepping stone to help us get there, to help us connect the nature, to connect nature with God's energy and ultimately God. Okay? And then the last term here that we'll talk about today, adhiyajña, right? The Lord is the enjoyer of all sacrifices. So this is referring to Krishna himself as the Supersoul, right? The witness within everyone's heart, right? And he's the one who ultimately receives all the sacrifices. Every act of worship, offering, right, or service, it ultimately reaches him, whether the performer realizes it or not. And if even if they're worshiping the demigod, it's just to be connected. It's the demigod's connected to Krishna. Right? So understanding this helps us shift from ritual to relationship, and that's what this is all about. Right? The real purpose of sacrifice is to reconnect with God, right? To act in a spirit of love and devotion. And when we live and serve with that awareness, with that consciousness, every moment becomes an offering, right? And our whole life becomes sacred. And that's what we're trying to get at here. And understanding these concepts helps us move to that place, right? Once we understand that everything is God's energy. My body, my job, my car, right? My house, it's all God's energy, right? And we understand it is all being taken care of for me, right? There's a universal arrangement, right? And that God lives in the heart, right? And when we understand that, and when we understand all these things, naturally, we love God. We want to serve God, right? When we really imbibe these realizations. And so this is where we're trying to get. Right? We don't just look out and see, the things around us as ordinary. We understand it's all God's energy. It's all extraordinary. Right? From what may seem mundane to like beautiful things in nature, right? Like the oceans, the mountains. Right? The goal is to understand it's all God's energy. Right? So that's the takeaway, right? The material world, it points us to God. The cosmic powers, the demigods, the universal form, right, points us to God. The super soul in our hearts points us to God, right? It all comes back to him. And this is where we're going next. With that awareness, especially at life's final moment, that makes all the difference. If we worship Krishna as the governing principle behind all these things, then we know him even at the time of death. Right? So we want to kind of train our vision, right? So that instead of seeing through the different lenses of material energy, right, we're seeing God in everything. Right? Our lens is like God colored, whatever color that is. And when we're looking around, we're going through our days, we're going through our lives, we see Krishna's hand in it all. That's how we're trying to train ourselves so that at that final moment, we remember. Right? And then what to speak of when we start to understand God behind matter, the cosmos, our own hearts. It just expands the understanding of who he really is. Right? He's not far away. He's not abstract. He's not something that you just, go and worship for an hour a week. It's like over here and then you go and do your own life. No, he's everywhere. Right? He's in everyone. He's in everything. Right? How amazing is this? So it's just little by little, we start to train our vision. Does anybody want to share anything before we move on to the fifth verse? Okay, let's move on to the fifth verse then. Stella, when you're ready.
And whoever at the end of his life quits his body, remembering me alone, at once attains my nature. Of this there is no doubt.
Thank you. This is a really powerful verse, right? And this is where Krishna's coming to Arjuna's final question. Remember, he asked a couple questions in those first couple verses. This is his final question. This is what the theme that we're going to talk about pretty much the rest of the chapter, right? How can someone remember him at the time of death? And the last verse we just talked about is a really nice kind of precursor to that because because this is this is the practice, right? It's like what we remember during our lives, right? What we invest time in, where our consciousness is. That's what we remember at the time of death. And it's so interesting. We were just kind of chit-chatting before we went live here. I was talking to Stella, and Stella is at her guru's ashram in California. Do you mind if I share this, Stella?
I suppose so, yeah. That's okay.
Well, I was asking her about I was asking her about her guru who has dementia right now. And I was talking to her about how I hear he's still chanting. And what she said was something so powerful. And this is exactly the point that it illustrates here. Can you tell us what you said, Stella?
Just that it's the we're a spiritual science, and the experiment of having chanted every day, for 50 years is proving to be the one thing that's in his mind and heart to do. So even when everything else is taken away and your thoughts are disordered, or you can't remember things, the holy name is there, really, really strong.
And
And
that's
that's gonna, that's our prayer, is that's the, no matter it's no longer dependent on his anything material, that the holy name will carry him to,
yeah.
at the time of death.
And for most people, like getting a diagnosis like that, like dementia, is like the worst, scariest.
Yes.
I mean, like that is, right up there with like Alzheimer's. These are just terrible, horrible diseases, right? And but to have a tool like that, to have a relationship like that with the holy name to carry you through, and
Yeah.
to have been practicing your whole life so that at that moment you get that terrible diagnosis, you have the holy name. It's
It's the
it's
only
like
thing left. It's the only thing left.
yeah, and how sweet to then. And I love what you said too. It's like he remembers that. He,
Yeah.
he remembers that because he's been chanting it his whole life. And that's his shelter.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's what it is to remember at the time of death, right? It doesn't happen by chance. It's the natural result of a lifetime spent turning towards him,
Yes.
right? Like little by little, moment by moment. What our mind goes to in that final moment reflects what we've truly valued throughout our life. And if we think about that, like think about what you truly value, and know that that's where your mind will go at the time of death. And that's why we're here. That's why we try to cultivate we invest time and energy into this relationship so that at that time for us, we remember it becomes what we value most. It becomes our shelter. Right? We think about for a minute, like if your thoughts reflected what you valued most, right? Like, what do you think about? If your thoughts reflect that, what do your current thoughts say about your values? Because sometimes we think we value something, but really what we're thinking about nine times out of 10 is something else. Right? So what are we thinking about all the time? Right? What things does your mind naturally gravitate towards? Right? And then are those the things that you truly want to carry with you beyond this life? Right? Because your thoughts are creating that template for your destination. And some traditions teach that your next destination depends on what you believe. Like just whatever belief you have, that's your next destination. The Gita is a little bit different perspective because Krishna is explaining that our next life is shaped not by our beliefs, but by our values, by what our heart and our mind have learned to hold most dear. And this is part of Krishna's beautiful reciprocity, right? He ensures that we go to that state of existence that aligns with what we valued the most. Right? Whatever we love, whatever we attach ourselves to, whatever fills our thoughts, that becomes our destination. And then we see this play out just like in our time here in this body on earth. Wherever your energy goes, or wherever your attention flows, what's that saying? What's that yoga saying that we say all the time? Energy flows. Whatever we're thinking about, whatever we're invested in, is what's creating our destiny, what's creating our future. Right? And so this plays out when we die as well. Whatever our consciousness was, whatever is on our mind, in our heart, right, determines our destination, where we're going to go next. Right? So this remembrance, it shouldn't just be an act of memorization or a ritualistic practice, right? It's the natural movement of our consciousness towards what we find most meaningful. Right? With both our emotions, our mind, and our rational thinking, our intelligence. What they've agreed is of ultimate worth. And then this is important. It's not something you can just fake or go through the motions. Right? It's serious stuff. We're really trying to develop this relationship so that this relationship becomes the most dear to us. Right? And if we think about it, when we're in danger, we instinctively reach out for what we value most. Right? And even if people that have had like near-death experiences, or even, this is pretty dark, but I was listening to on September 11th, it wasn't too long ago, there was like the phone calls of the people that were on the plane. It's natural when you think it's your time, your mind instantly goes to what you value most, your families. Right? There's some pretty sad calls to kids. Anyway, when it's our time, where's our mind going to go? Right? Because what do we value most? What have we spent time developing a relationship in? Right? If through our lifetime we've taken shelter in Krishna, if we've remembered him, if we've served him, if we've built a relationship with him, right, then at the time of death, our mind will naturally go to him. Right? It won't be forced or mechanical. It will be instinctive, right? Like calling out to the one that you love most when you're afraid. Right? And the beautiful thing is when that happens, Krishna responds with love. Right? He's eager to take us back. He doesn't want us to stay trapped in the cycle of birth and death. Right? That's what happens if we're attached to material things. Right? If that's our meditation, then we'll get a body that's conducive to that. Right? Because we know our thoughts are a template for our reality, and it just continues. Right? The soul's eternal, it has an eternal journey, so it continues. Right? But Krishna wants to see whether we truly want to come back to him. And if that desire is genuine, then he'll make it happen. Right? He's our best friend. That's what he wants more than anything. But he wants to see us turning back towards him. right? So it's not something that we can't hack the system, right? By simply just saying God's name at that last moment. We can't just like try to conjure up, so that we're saved. It's not something that's like fear-based, right? And it's not like a formula. It's a relationship. Right? You can't fake love. So what matters is the attachment, the affection, the remembrance we've cultivated over time. This is also like so beautiful and helpful in this life, just like we've said, if we never know what's going to happen, right? But if we're taking shelter in God at that moment, it can take something that would be like, again, the worst thing in the entire world and make it sweet. It can make it sweet. This is actually making me feel a little bit better because my family has a history of Alzheimer's. And my sister's husband's mother just got diagnosed with Alzheimer's. And it's really hard for them all. I mean, you can imagine it's just such a terrible disease to see your friends, to see them kind of lose their mind like that. And so we have to, this love for the holy name, our connection to God has to be rooted so deeply within us that when these things come and these tsunamis of life come and just like knock us over, we're still connected. Because they're going to come in one way or another. It's going to come. You could think of like I like this analogy. You think of a bird sitting on a branch, right? The bird sitting on the branch. Is the bird living in constant fear that the branch might break? Right? Do you think the bird's thinking about that as he's sitting on the branch? And no, the bird's not thinking about that because it knows that even if it does, it can spread its wings and it can fly away. Right? So the branch might be its current perch, but its real security lies in its wings. Right? But imagine that bird is just like a little baby and its wings haven't developed yet. Right? So in this case, the little bird, it does depend on the branch because until its wings are strong enough, it can't fly. So in many ways, we're like that little baby bird. Right? Deep down, we're not these bodies, right? We're souls. Right? And our real home isn't here in the temporary material world. It's in the eternal spiritual sky. And in our wings, the wings that can carry us, are our love and devotion for God. Right? That's where we want to take shelter. That's our real shelter. Right? Everything else that we take shelter in, even things that are, great and healthy, like families, great. Understand that they're still branches and they're still subject to decay. Right? They can break. They can decay slowly or they can just break tomorrow. Right? So are we developing our spiritual wings? Right? And the problem is that most of us don't even realize that we have those wings. We get so busy chasing comfort, success, right? Security, that we start clinging to that branch. Right? We're clinging to the branches, things like our possessions, our relationships, our status. We're thinking that they'll hold us forever. But no, right? The truth is, every material branch is going to eventually break. And it's not like us being negative or pessimistic, it's just us being real. Because, I mean, I have a great family. I have a great family. I have a nice job. These things are great. They're very nice. But as no matter how much you like them, no matter how healthy they are, no matter how uplifting they are for you, those branches, they're going to decay or they're going to suddenly break. Eventually. This is the nature. So don't get too invested in them. Don't forget that you have spiritual wings. Right? And before that happens, before these branches break or decay, we need to strengthen our spiritual wings. And then how do we do that? We do that through the bhakti yoga practice, right? Through the daily practice of remembering and serving God with love. Right? Every prayer, every mantra, every act of service. These are like little wing exercises for the soul. Right? That's what's happening. Over time, our attraction to God is growing stronger. It's growing stronger than our attachment to anything else. Right? And when that love becomes deep and real, it naturally carries us. Right? Even at the time of death, it's carrying us to Him. And that's when life transforms. We stop seeing the world as a place to get comfortable, and we start seeing it as a place to grow, to prepare our hearts for the eternal journey ahead. Right? We like to believe that the world is here for my convenience, right? I need to be the most comfortable. Right? And if I'm not, something's wrong. Right? That's our material consciousness. Right? And the reality is the world is a place for us to grow. If you're being challenged, great. That's good. Right? Because if you're too comfortable sitting in that tree, you're never going to realize that you even have wings. So that's a blessing, right? When something challenges your comfort or your way, right? That's an opportunity to start exercising those wings. Right? And that's what happens. When the shift happens, we become like birds with fully developed wings. Right? We can still live in the world, but we don't live for it. We live for God, right? Here and forever. Yeah. So what are some things that are coming up for you guys? I want to hear some of your reflections. We have a little bit left, but let's just pause and hear some reflections. Stella, how are you feeling?
I want to hear. I want to hear from somebody. I want to hear.
Okay, let's hear that. Shakti, your hands up. How are you feeling?
Um, so this is bringing up for me. I feel like I've been crying. So give me a moment. Um, my son was home over the weekend. He bought a car. But we bought a car. We helped him buy a car. And my husband and I really wanted him to get the car that, like we didn't get him a new car, and most of the money he used was was money that was given to him. So, but we spent a lot of time helping him through this process. And he was home last weekend. We found the car, but he went to some college and was hanging out with friends, which, I mean, he's 19. I want him to do those things. And then he came home this weekend, and then there's, I think, homecoming or something. And so he was also hanging around some friends and spending time. And huh?
He picked up the car.
And he picked up the car this weekend. And my birthday is in 4 days. And I don't know, I guess there was a piece of me that thought he might, like, come home like the last day before he goes back to school. And because he knew I had a training on Sundays. So I thought I would see him. Maybe he would take me to breakfast. It's been such a it's been a long journey to get this car. And, maybe showing some gratitude for the work that my husband and I put in. And that did not happen. He sent me some message about somebody's car was blocking his car, whatever. The message was basically he was trying to get home. He's going to see if he can make it before I leave for my training. And my branch broke. And I went down to my temple to Radha and Krishna and Nitai and Gauranga. And I just cried. And I just said, please help me through this because I'm so attached to my child.
Mm.
And I'm so attached that he didn't even make time to Oh, I'm gonna take my mom for breakfast. It's her birthday in a couple of days and I won't be at home. That he spent the whole weekend for 2 weekends with his friends, which I don't, he knows that I love him to be with his friends. But the point is that you didn't even take an hour, not even a minute. And he was like, I'm gonna try and get home. And it was like I was leaving. I said, you know what? Don't bother. I'm leaving. So don't rush home so that I can pass you on my way out.
Hmm.
Don't do that. I don't, if you're not, if you didn't make a choice to come home and be with me, then seeing his face on my way out, what, I don't know what that does. So I was so sad and I just had to, and still sad, but I just had to pray to let go of that bind that, I
Hmm.
mean, it's if you have children, you can understand this, well, this bind, and it's so hard, like when he went for university. But this one was really hard. I guess I just felt like he didn't even think of me at all.
Hmm.
And that like broke my heart. Um, and I just asked to not do this all day long for the next time I see it. I don't know. Just let go of that attachment to make me so that I feel better.
Hmm.
I think that's, like I don't even know what I was saying. I was just saying, Krishna, please help me. Because I didn't know what to say. I just wanted Krishna to help me like stand up, and I had to go to a training and like stand up in front of people and teach a class. And I was like, I couldn't even like stop crying. So I
Hmm.
just asked him to help me, like just to be okay. Help me be okay. Help me be okay. I mean, I don't know if in the time when the branch breaks, I don't know if you always know what to say. At least
Hmm.
because you're in it, right? So, I mean, at first I was like, why does he not, why? And then I was like, it doesn't matter. Help me not be like this. Help me get
Hmm.
through this. Help me stop crying. Help me let go of that attachment of that I'm living for him.
Hmm.
He's my one and only child. I had him at 40. He literally has my heart like wrapped, and
Hmm.
it squeezes. And it's like, oh God, and it's so painful. And I don't know how to let go of that other than asking Krishna for mercy.
Wow. Well, we're all here crying with you, Shakti, because that is a deep, just like you said, that is such a deep attachment. And for you to be able, even in that moment, to see it as kind of an impetus for your spiritual practice, to go to God and to recognize, I don't know why he's doing this. Look, that doesn't matter. Help me to release this, just like you said, this attachment that I'm living for him. Right? And it's like that's so beautiful. It's like it's like your spiritual wings are growing because every time we do that, every time our branch breaks and we go to our altar, we go to our sacred space and we pray and we reach out, we reach up. It's our little wings are growing and we're learning to depend on God. We're learning that that's our real shelter. Right?
I
That's
felt a real dropity moment, like I just was like, please, 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 like just, yeah.
It's amazing. And it doesn't feel good in the moment, right? It's painful just like it's this it's hard. It hurts. It doesn't feel good when that branch breaks and we're falling. Right? But it forces us to grow those spiritual wings. And when we're at that place where the whole tree falls over and we no longer have a tree to live in, we're death's on the other side and we're so close to it. That's when we really need those wings. Right? There's not another branch that's going to be able to catch us. No, the branches are gone. The tree's falling over. Are our wings developed? Are we ready to go? Are we ready to fly? Are we clinging onto that branch as the tree is falling over? It's amazing. You know what to speak of, Shakti, what kind of mother you can be as you grow with your child. You know, as your child's growing and you're growing. And to the degree that you have that relationship with God and you don't rely on him so much for your fulfillment, for your happiness, that enables you to really be there for him. Right? And then what a testament to faith, to God-centered relationships that can be for him as he continues to grow and to learn. So that's really amazing because you could take that experience and you could be bitter and you could be mad and you could be woe is me. And you may feel all those things. You probably do on some level. But to rise higher in that moment and know, look, I know this is what I'm feeling now. This is not where I want to be. This is not how I want to feel. This is not how I want to be. In fact, no, that's it. That's the work. That's amazing. So nice. Thank you for sharing. So nice. Thank you, Shakti.
And Shakti, don't worry, I have a 35-year-old son and he was 19 once. So their brain matures. They come. A son always holds his mother very deep in his heart, but at that age, he's definitely trying to be, he's absorbed with his own becoming. So the mother is a foundation, and you got to just trust that in the son's heart, and you'll see he'll come back around. And you know, I love having kids over the age of 25 when their brain is fully in. Um, because they start to turn and want to take care of you. I didn't know that would happen, and it has. But it took, decade or two. But
Thank you,
it
Stella.
happens. And if you
Yeah, and
love them well, they'll love you well. It really,
there's that other piece. I don't want to take the whole class, but there's that other piece where I don't want to try and make him feel guilty that he didn't do that because, like you
right.
said, Stella, he's 19. That's what 19-year-olds do. He's been to like three different colleges for three different homecomings. Like, that's what I was telling my husband. Like, my husband said to me, all I kept saying is, he needs to have a car so he can go to these homecomings and do these things. And then he did them and there made no time for me. And then I got mad. But then,
Yeah.
of course, behind the mad, Stella, you know this, behind the mad, and you too, probably, Radha, behind the mad is like, you don't love me?
But
Like, oh
they
my God,
do. They
right?
do. Yeah, it's all that stuff at that age is not a negative in those things. They're just going like that base is always there. Don't worry. Don't worry.
I do know that, and he'll
But
say to
oh
me,
yeah,
I thought you wanted me to see my friends. So it's
Hmm.
like,
it's a
yes, I
long
do.
growing process as a
Yes.
mother.
Right. The
It's
Very
mother
much.
it's
growing process.
The
I'm
mother
still
it's
growing process.
growing.
it's a nice opportunity too for you to kind of like pick up that stone and see what's underneath of it, like all the dirty bugs and to clean a little bit in the meantime, to see where you're. Yeah, we
Thank
love
you,
those
Stella.
opportunities. Thanks. Erin, what do you think?
Well, I just want to share that I was exactly like your son when I was 19 to my to my parents. And it did take my brain fully developing to and going out and experiencing things on my own to come full circle and back home. And I've always had a good relationship with my parents, but we get closer and closer, I feel like every year. But we definitely went through a time where I was just like that, like 100% like that. Um, so now it's interesting. This is going to sound really strange, but if you've ever seen Gilmore Girls, when I first watched it, I identified with the daughter. And then during the pandemic, I watched it again and I was like, oh my goodness, now I identify with the mom. And I feel like I'm going through that again with this conversation of like, I definitely at one point identified with your son. And now I feel like Shakti, I'm like on the other, like going towards the other end of the spectrum where I'm like identifying with you and your experience. I'm like, oh man, it's gonna come back for sure. um, but I just was really loving what you were saying, Radha, about the stepping stone. Um, because I feel like looking back, I can like see like my own stepping stones on this path, and um where I was when I was going to church for an hour in a week and checking that box and having fulfilled my requirement for the week, and that was that. And then breaking away from that tradition and feeling very anti organized religion for a long time, and really identifying with nature and like going for very long walks and just wanting to be with nature and just feeling like, not needing a priest or an organized anything to commune with God. And I feel like I'm starting to see like how to hold all of those things, like, like that can be true for nature, but it's not enough. And like there's more beyond it. Maybe it's enough for that part of my life or that period of time, but yeah, just putting it into perspective of like going beyond that and like seeing it as a stepping stone, I think is just like a really nice framing of it, and framing like this path and how the bhakti path also fits into like where I currently am in my spiritual path. But it definitely leaves me with I see the further stones ahead of like, you know, I can get really into just the act of whatever I'm doing, like even if it is seva. And I definitely don't, it's just like I'm doing it. It's like not that I'm necessarily like doing it for Krishna or like um thinking about it in that way. So I feel like that's just something that I'm like, you know, praying of like how like I know my desires are mixed, and like how do I spiritualize my desires, but I also just um yeah, just like sitting with that of like, well, I'm doing it because I was asked to do it, but I don't know that I'm doing it because I'm doing it as an offering.
Mm.
Um and yeah, just that.
Yeah, beautiful realizations. I think these things can be a process too, like, okay, you're asked to do it, so you do it. But that doesn't have to be all that it is. I mean, like that's how this podcast started. Like just asked to do it. And then it's like now it's like the person that asked me to do it, he doesn't even come to it. And it's like and it's a whole different thing for me now. It's so these things like that can be just like a impetus or like a catalyst to do things. And then you develop a relationship through that. And then that person, it was just kind of like the doorway in. And so it doesn't have to be limited to whatever it was when it started, or as we develop our relationships. And I love what you said, you pray about it. That's such a beautiful intention to whatever service you're doing, how small, however small, however big, just pray that it purifies you and that it brings you closer to God, right? And that your what you're doing is aligned with God's will. Right? And we pray for those things constantly. And that prayer, if we have that sincere prayer, we'll see God transform whatever it is in our lives. And it could be your day job. God, I want to see this as a service to you. Start your day with that intention, that prayer, that sincere, genuine prayer, and you'll see it transform. You'll see God transform that in your life, and use that as a bridge from the material to the spiritual world to connect you with him. But we have to want it. That's it. That's all we have to do. We have to desire, right? We have to desire it, and whatever it is in our life, God will use to bring us closer to Him. It's really nice realizations, Aaron. Anybody else want to share?
Yeah, I'll share.
Yeah.
Can everyone hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to say, I'm just going to add on to what Aaron shared. That is so beautiful. And yeah, we're such a mixed bag, like, we know we're still so conditioned, and to speak on what you shared, Shakti, it's like we know we're so conditioned. We know we still have all these attachments. And in the moment when those attachments are pulling us, it's like, man, I mean, I tend to put myself down, and I really need to like stop doing that and remember that Krishna knows we're a mixed bag. Prabhupada knows we're a mixed bag. Our gurus know we're a mixed bag. That's why they give us the process, right? Like, it's not that we have to become perfect and then do it. It's like, and I'm speaking this to myself right now because I tend to get caught in that thinking of, oh, I have to be perfect. I have to be detached. And it's not entirely true. It's the process that helps us become detached in time. And, another thing that came up for me after Shakti was sharing was, yeah, like we hear in our scriptures how family, it's like the hardest thing to detach from. And in my life, unfortunately, my family, I want family so bad. And both my growing up family and my family now, raising Luna, it's like very disconnected and not ideal how I think family should be. And I still have sadness around it, but hearing this class today, it's like, and I was actually just talking to my mom about this yesterday. I had a really long conversation with her. And, sometimes it's really hard, like, going 50-50 with my daughter. It's like, I just want to be a mom. Like, I don't know what to do with myself sometimes. I just want to be a mom. And, but then the conversation went on, and I was like, but, I have found like a spiritual community. I do feel good, being able to engage in that and having more time for that. And my mom was like, yeah, we're not perfectly renounced yet. It's like, it's okay that you still want that family unit. Like, it's okay. And I was just thinking, like, I was thinking about that. And so it's interesting today's class brings that in. So I was already thinking, yeah, I'm not perfectly renounced, but I am still trying to, like, the week I don't have Luna, it's like I try to be more Krishna conscious. But then the week I have Luna, I like beat myself up for not being as Krishna conscious. And I'm like, I have to just accept, like, I'm at where I'm at. I'm doing the best in both situations, and Krishna sees my effort, and I'm not perfectly renounced and perfectly regulated, but I also, like, Krishna's giving me that time to practice detachment within my family, but also have more time for him. So it's such an interesting life that I have. But yeah, sometimes I used to just think like, wow, Krishna really doesn't like me because he's taken my family away in a sense. But in another sense, he's come into my life so much more, even though like I'm missing the material family aspect. Like spiritually, I feel so nourished. So it's a little confusing, and I think my mind just has to like be at peace with where I'm at, and so I'm working on just accepting it as it is and not beat myself up or like think that I have to change it in some way, and just trust like Krishna has this plan. Like, Krishna is doing this to help me be a little detached from family life, because I would be so attached. Like, I would be so attached to Luda. Like, I remember even when all this first happened a couple years ago and her dad and I separated and the attachment was so strong. Like, I was like, what do you mean? Like, I get so worked up over certain things with Luna, and actually going through the process and detaching has helped me to really be present with Luna and to be able to even teach her Krishna consciousness. Like, he has like these moments where I'm like, wow, you're just like a little devotee. You're amazing, you know? And I wouldn't have been able to see that if I didn't put myself in a different situation to where I could let Krishna in more. And,
Wow.
it's really just about practicing the gratitude for where your life is. For me, at least, that's what I have to do. Because otherwise, my mind just wants to make it mean so many things. But yeah, we're a mixed bag, but Krishna sees it, sees our effort, and yeah, we just pray, like Krishna, I'm a mixed bag, help me, and
Wow.
yeah,
Amazing. Thank you, Mariah. It's so relatable. I sometimes feel the same way, but in a different sense. Like, 'cause my husband doesn't practice Krishna consciousness, and sometimes I see couples that do. Like you were just talking to Stella, and it's just like always the first thought in my mind, like, "Wow, that must be so nice. Like that's so beautiful. Yeah, that you do that together." And but just like you said, we just have to accept like Krishna is orchestrating our lives in just the way that it needs to be to pull us closer to him. And it's not for us to like judge or, say this isn't good enough or it's just for us to do our best with where we are and what we have and trust that it's part of the divine plan, just like you said. And we all
Radha,
have those things. Those things are just for all of us. We all have those things. Yeah.
yeah,
Somebody just say something?
I did. I just wanted to share. Erin posted in the chat, and I mean, we all know this, but it's perfect timing. Like, I love the statement that if Krishna likes you, he gives you everything you want. If he loves you, he takes it all away.
Hmm.
So beautiful, Erin.
Yeah. Same. Sometimes I feel like if I wasn't a devotee, I would be constantly changing my life so that it would be perfect, that it would be so unstable and miserable. And that's what I was doing before I was a devotee. It was like, it's, yeah, we have to kind of let go and trust Krishna and know that it's the nature of the branches. They're going to shift, they're going to move, they're going to decay, they're going to break. Let's just work on growing those spiritual wings. Get as strong as branch as you can, a nice big strong branch, so that you can have a little bit of shelter as you're growing your wings. That's what we're trying to do. Yeah. So nice. Thank you all. Thank you all for your shares. Any last minute wisdom from anybody before we end for the day? Anybody? Anything coming up? Are you guys feeling inspired? Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you all for coming. And let's just remember this visual as we go through our weeks of the bird in the tree. And we have a lot of bird in the trees metaphor, but this one in particular, sitting on the branch, the material branch, waiting for it to break. Let's really put some thought and intention into how we could grow those wings. Right? So when that time comes, we're ready. And it's sweet. Death can be sweet. Death can be sweet. How is that real? Thank you all.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.